This sign is in a hotel located 800 meters from MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. It says it's illegal to walk there. Well, supposedly. The World Cup final is being hosted in this stadium soon, and people from New Jersey have been quick to warn Europeans that they can't walk there because it's just highways, swampland, and toxic waste. And guys, they aren't kidding about the toxic waste. That's coming up in this video. Where I'm currently standing, though, used to be one of the most derelict, contaminated industrial wastelands in all of Western Europe. I'm talking animal carcasses in the canals, industrial runoff, and a decommissioned nuclear reactor. And all that just 7 years before London hosted the Olympics in 2012. New Jersey, on the other hand, has had 8 years to prepare for the World Cup. So what exactly did each city do with that time? Well, my name is Edinger, and I was born and raised in the state of New Jersey. Then I moved to the UK over 13 years ago. And what I found when I started digging for this story genuinely shocked me, even as someone who grew up there. I went into this story thinking that the main problem with America was the lack of pedestrian infrastructure, and then quickly found, oh no, that is just a symptom. This story gets way bigger. So let me show you around the Olympic Stadium in London for a bit, because this short walk tells a story New Jersey and the rest of the US really don't want you to know. This is Stratford in East London. Right now it looks like this, but wind the clock back to 2005 when London won the Olympic bid, and this exact stretch of the Lower Lee Valley was a different world entirely. This area had been heavily industrialized in the 1800s. Think chemical plants, fertilizer factories. In fact, I've cycled along this route so many times, and never once did I realize where that funky little building is used to be one of the biggest slaughterhouses in the entire country. But because this was before anyone really cared about where industrial waste went, everything just went into the canals. The River Lee, right here next to me, was essentially an open sewer. This is something still in living memory for a lot of locals who would refer to this area as Stinky Stratford. Just imagine living somewhere along this road where the smell of boiling animal fat was just your average Tuesday. To make matters worse, as you can see from this map, this whole area was surrounded by rivers and canals, which during strong rainfall would completely flood the area, causing residents to have to vacate until the water receded. So they've got some toxic factory runoff in the canals, they've got some animal bodies in the canals, sometimes bodies were actually dumped in these canals. Speaking to The Guardian in 2010 about the £12.7 million cost of the cleanup, Hazel Reed, a local resident, said, "It's not fair that the public is having to pay to clean up the mess, but God knows if we left it up to the companies to do it, nothing would happen. Someone has to pay for it, and if my 38p a week in tax goes into leaving behind something that my children and grandchildren can enjoy, then so be it." Astute. So then why would London choose to host the Olympics in such a bad part of the city in the first place? Well, according to Bloomberg, from the beginning, London's plans prioritized an economic regeneration rather than just one encouraging sports. Planning documents flagged a wide range of things that would boost Stratford, London, and even the UK generally, including lifting the mood of the nation, creating jobs and building new housing. For Stratford in particular, one of the greatest promises of hosting the Games was that it would clean up the area literally. So 7 years after London won the bid to host the Olympics, the difference is, well, there was a difference. To prepare for hosting such a big international event in such a grim part of the city, London got to work. They drilled over 3,000 holes across the site to assess for contamination, and then they cleaned it all up. Decades of industrial waste were removed from the over 6 kilometers of rivers running through here. They created 70 kilometers of brand new pedestrian and cycle routes and put up lovely sculptures like the one next to me to beautify the space. This one right here is meant to represent that consumerism is baked into our genetic structure. They tripled the capacity of Stratford Station at a cost of £200 million, built Europe's largest urban shopping center on what was previously a landfill, built the stadium, built loads of high-density housing, added a train line. And then when the Olympics finally happened, every guest was given free travel across the entire London transport network, just for coming. And since then, this part of London has become an area that people are actually flocking to. And all this happened in under 7 years. It's honestly crazy to see. London didn't just accept the awful state of things, it sought and succeeded to improve things. New Jersey, on the other hand, well, they've had 8 years since their bid. Let's see what's going on in my home state. Well, North Jersey starts off similarly to Stratford. 8 years ago, when New Jersey won the bid to host the World Cup, the Meadowlands was in a pretty hostile state too. Decades of only prioritizing car traffic in the densest region of the USA had had drastic effects. New York City's biggest stadium, the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, was under 10 kilometers from Manhattan, but yet was completely surrounded by massive highways and parking lots. Walking anywhere near the stadium was incredibly dangerous, and the only pedestrian infrastructure, a single footbridge, took residents to the stadium parking lot from the parking lot of a nearby mall. So not really pedestrian infrastructure. Things were so bad 8 years ago, hotels like the then-named Hilton Meadowlands had to put up signs like this one, urging guests used to living in more modern countries not to attempt to walk the 800 meters to the stadium. The statute listed on the sign, NJ Statute 39434, actually states that on highways where no sidewalk exists, pedestrians shall walk on the extreme left side facing traffic. Where sidewalks do exist, well, it is unlawful to walk on the adjacent roadway. So basically, if we actually give you a place to walk, you must walk there. And if not, well, I guess you're just gonna have to risk your life. Considering this is the road outside the hotel with the stadium visibly right there, as there is no sidewalk in sight, well, you'd be expected to walk along the left-hand side of the road until you get hit by a car flying around this slip road. To make matters worse, the whole complex was built on wetlands. Well, they used to be. The thing is, what used to be a thriving ecosystem of Atlantic white cedar swamps and salt marshes across over 108 square kilometers was reduced by nearly 70% for further redevelopment, a story across many countries. The previously freshwater portions of the wetlands were transformed into brackish saltwater habitats. But that wasn't the only thing killing the local wildlife. Since 1929, factory after factory after factory along the Hackensack River and Barry's Creek would churn out untreated chemical waste. The wildlife kept dying, so in the mid-1960s, the state's Department of Environmental Protection performed some tests of standard chemicals in the water that came out of the factory. But they never took any action from this. It wasn't until 1970 that the US Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, found out what was really going on. For decades, the chemical processing plant run by F.W. Burke and Company had been pumping out mercury, of all things, into the water. And when the EPA performed tests of the plant wastewater in 1970, when the plant was then run by a company called Ventron, it found there were daily discharges of about 1 to 2 kilograms of mercury into the waterways. That is about 2 to 4 pounds. Every single day. But the EPA and the state did nothing about it until the plant shut down on its own accord 4 years later. Remember that quote from the Newham resident from earlier? About the cleaning of the pollution in London, they said, "God knows if we left it up to the companies to do it, nothing would happen." Yeah, well, the state sued the companies involved in 1976, and then a full 7 years later, the Supreme Court finally ruled that, quote, even if the factory owners did not intend to pollute or adhere to the standards at the time, all of these parties remain liable. Those who poison the land must pay for its cure. Well, that sounds really nice. And so the companies were ordered to pay for the cleanup in 1983. You want to know how that went? Well, some of the companies were absorbed into bigger companies, and that's not fair to make them pay, right? Well, others also splintered into smaller companies. Others went out of business. They ran out of money. Oh no, what are the chances? Yet somehow, a lot of these companies had significant money to pay for the legal fees to draw this out in court for over 5 decades. The EPA did more testing, and the results were not pretty. Barry's Creek was officially the most contaminated freshwater stream in the USA. There was so much methylmercury in the water in Barry's Creek that it was deemed to have the highest concentration of that chemical in any waterway in the entire world. USA, number 1. Well, the EPA's threshold for concern is when mercury levels surpass 0.18 milligrams. So the amount found in the area around the World Cup stadium was 11,000 times what was considered safe. And methylmercury, the toxic form that accumulates in fish flesh and travels up the food chain to you, well, long-term effects of the methylmercury may include kidney problems and decreased intelligence. Interesting that. So when New Jerseyans are telling you about the toxic waste that awaits if you attempt to walk to the stadium, they're not kidding. But you might be confused here, because, well, the year all this toxic waste was found was 1970, and the court case was in 1983, and it was officially recognized as a Superfund site and put on the national priorities list in 1984, a full 42 years ago. Why would people still be complaining about that now? Like it's some sort of reluctant acceptance that that's just the way it is. We just live around toxic waste. Get used to it. We have. Especially before such a massive international event bringing a huge amount of guests to your area. What's been done since then? For the first year after New Jersey won the bid to host the games, it didn't actually try doing anything to solve its problems yet. But the next 6 years after, New Jersey made the bold decision to also not do anything. Nothing changed, nothing cleaned, nothing built, nothing done. The same paltry train line runs from Manhattan to the stadium on the same decaying rolling stock at limited capacity, unable to accommodate the increased footfall that comes with hosting the World Cup. However, in February of this year, a mere 4 months before the start of the World Cup, construction started on a pedestrian footbridge costing $750,000, connecting the American Dream Mall, ironic, parking lot to Meadowlands Parking Lot C. That's it. That's the list. 7.5 years of nothing, and then a bridge between 2 car parks, which, by the way, aren't even that useful at getting you anywhere that you'd want to go, because all they do is allow you to get somewhere from your car. So essentially, the only bit of pedestrian infrastructure that New Jersey built still exists solely to serve drivers. Actually, come to think of it, why was MetLife Stadium chosen in the first place? Well, according to NPR, MetLife Stadium was chosen because of its, quote, proximity to New York City as a media hub with central access to hotels, restaurants, entertainment, and international flights. Oh, so that's it? I guess it'd be like if Stratford was chosen due to its proximity to central London and guests were expected to just traipse through the toxic area. But speaking of that, what about the toxic waste in North Jersey? Well, the good news is, after 42 long years, they're finally going to start cleaning it. They say, after the World Cup ends, late 2026 or something, it's not important. They'll get to it. Across the entire Superfund program, legal fees and cleanup fees are roughly equal, meaning that for every dollar that's actually spent cleaning up the polluted waterway, another dollar is spent between lawyers arguing about who should have to pay for it. And if you want to better understand how America operates as a country, I do not think you can find a better example. Why put any time and money into improving everyone's quality of life when you can just spend 50 years arguing about who should pay for it instead?
But now New Jersey's in a bit of a pickle. How's New Jersey supposed to support the huge surge of people coming for the World Cup if it hasn't actually done anything to support the huge surge of people coming for the World Cup? Not just in terms of basic safety, but, oh my God, financially? It's going to cost the state a lot of money to run all those extra train and bus services they had 8 years to prepare for. They can't just make public transport in the city free for the World Cup guests like London did. That would cost too much money. It's not like this is the most densely populated region of the richest country in the world. And a ticket from Penn Station in New York City to MetLife Stadium only costs $12.90 on a normal day. But what if, to solve the problem that they themselves created, they simply increase the price of public transport to the World Cup? Nothing crazy, just a casual 12 times increase to $150 for a train ticket and $80 for a bus. But don't worry, according to New Jersey Transit President and CEO Chris Kaluri, he says, this isn't price gouging, we're literally trying to recoup costs. Okay, so they're just trying to recoup costs. They can't build anything. That would cost money. They can't clean the most contaminated waterway in the country. How would they recoup their costs? The plan's simple. Don't do anything, and then point fingers at others for why nothing was done. I think you'll find it's quite genius, really. That is, if you have long-term exposure to methyl mercury for unknown reasons. So Europeans, South Americans, Asians, Australians, Africans, all looking forward to the World Cup, see all this happening online and post about it like, this is insane, right? The price gouging is so bad, many joked they would just walk. But armed with the American exceptionalism indoctrinated into them in school without them even being aware of it, many New Jerseyans flocked to social media to defend the honor of the US and their toxic swamp of a home state. Their words, not mine. But at this point, as their American exceptionalism had, like a sleeper agent, fully kicked in, the US had to be defended at all costs. Any ideas, no matter how crazy, must be thrown at the wall to avoid any critical thought. Because, as you know, the US is the greatest country in the world. We are number one. Who do these Europeans think they are? Europeans thinking they're gonna walk to the stadium. Let's ignore all the other countries for this. Europeans are just stupid. In fact, wanting to walk is, please really try and forget the other countries that exist for this one. Wanting to walk is white supremacy, actually. Fascinating.
So the Europeans find out about this and they're like, look, it's only a mile away, but it's a mile that's like crossing like 6-lane freeways.
With the Europeans who would like to walk to the World Cup games at MetLife Stadium.
Europeans thinking that they can walk to MetLife Stadium to see the World Cup is white supremacy, and I am going to explain to you why.
Don't these Europeans know that we live in a toxic wasteland? Don't they know it's illegal to walk here? Don't they know it's a living hellscape that I would gladly stand up next to you and defend her still to... Sorry. Something went wrong with my programming there. The truth is, America's embarrassing lack of walkability and pedestrian infrastructure is not the biggest problem here. I'm sure I do not speak for myself when I say it is embarrassing today. It was embarrassing 8 years ago, and it was embarrassing the year I was born there. That's the real issue. Literally nothing ever improves. This isn't a problem with just one political party. No finger pointing here. When one party's in power, they take cookies from the cookie jar and blame the other party. When power flips, the other party does the same. Meanwhile, no cookies are being made until we find out who's really been taking them. In my 35 years of being an American citizen, we've had 7 different presidential administrations. Back and forth, Democrat, Republican. The whole country's run like a budget airline, and it's only a matter of time before they start charging for the oxygen masks. Actually, I'm pretty sure they already are. No matter how much data, no matter how much science or time or money, nothing changes. The country is in decline. But this thought cannot penetrate the thick layer of American exceptionalism that is used to brainwash the population into avoiding thinking critically about the country. Many Americans across the country have begun waking up to reality recently, like frogs in a pot of boiling water, horrified by what they see around them. Things have gotten so bad that many have managed to break out momentarily from their American media bubble that they don't even know they're in. But those Americans are stuck terrified, sharing the country with an ever-increasing population of people against science, against logic, against learning, actively working to make everybody's quality of life go down and slowly dismantling what little democracy they have left. When I was a kid, growing up in America, I was taught America was the greatest country in the world. I'd pledge allegiance to the flag every single day and be made to write essays on great Americans who dreamed of a greater future and who fought to make America better for everyone. America used to be a country that tried, that dreamed, that succeeded a lot. But looking into any modern American discourse these days about any of the problems plaguing the country, you'll only find one thing: excuses. Gone are the days of trying to make America better. Instead, we're told reasons why America can't get better. Just statements of the way things are right now. America's different. America's too big. We just can't walk there. It's just the way it is. We're not built that way. You wouldn't get it. Except I do. It's like most of these Americans seem perpetually stuck in what America is now and not having any idea of what America can be. You know, things can get better, right? Things don't always have to be shit, if you try. Hey, it just seems like there's never, ever enough money for this sort of thing. I mean, how much did it cost London to clean up its toxic swamp, build its new train lines and housing and more? Well, it was about $11.8 billion at today's rates. Between 2023 and 2025, the US gave nearly 3 times that, $33 billion in military aid to Israel and its support in the operations in the Middle East. Well, Trump's war in Iran to distract from the Epstein files has cost an estimated $50 billion to the taxpayer, and that's only been 2 months long so far. The US could have done the equivalent of 4 London Stratfords just with the money from the Iran war, investing into the desperately crumbling infrastructure of the country. But when you raise a society on the doublethink that they have the freedom to criticize the government, while simultaneously training them that any criticism is unpatriotic, you don't get democracy. You get a cult unable to perceive its own cognitive dissonance. But as the New Jersey Transit president said, we're just trying to recoup costs. And that's exactly the problem. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit in. But planting trees is expensive, so I guess it makes more sense to chop your trees down and charge $150 for your guests to stand in the sun. But don't worry, you can also charge them for sunscreen. I stand corrected. Since filming this, it no longer costs $150 to stand in the sun, proverbially. New Jersey Transit has reduced the cost of a ticket to $105 now, thanks to sponsors and other sources. Thank God to our corporate overlords for the tiny morsels that we receive. But maybe it's the overly American part of me that wants to give a glimmer of hope here, but from everything that I've seen, New York's new mayor has been trying his best to give the residents of New York City a more livable place, and it might not be a massive change right now, but Los Angeles has actually been putting some effort in recently to improve its public transportation access in preparation for the upcoming Olympic Games. No matter how hopeless it sometimes feels, there are always going to be people out there that are trying to make a difference. It's just a shame that they always have to fight from within such a broken system. Anyway, I will see you all next Sunday. Goodbye. 'Cause I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't Forget the man who died and gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the USA.